Come join me on my Tesla full self-driving adventures. In this video, we take a drive out to, well, actually, the full self-driving drives us out to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Note the start time. We started full self-driving turned on at 9:19 a.m. This drive is going to be approximately 40 minutes. It's about 30 miles and about 40 minutes worth of driving, all of which full self-driving will have complete control. I never touch the steering wheel. In fact, I don't touch the steering wheel again until we get towards the parking lot, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's actually right before the parking lot at Lake Geneva, because I actually wasn't sure exactly where to go, so I took over. When you put in navigation, when you put in Lake Geneva, which is what I did, it sort of just takes you to the general location of the Lake Geneva Resort. Sorry, we're going to the Lake Geneva Resort. So it just takes you to the general location of the Lake Geneva Resort. I had not dialed in the supercharger at Lake Geneva Resort, which is probably what I should have done, and then it would have taken me right there. So anyway, so I end up taking over manually right before I get to the superchargers. The video is Most of the video is 8x. I think when I leave the superchargers, I think so this video is both to Lake Geneva and back, and when I leave the superchargers, I think I do to 1x or maybe 2x, because the scenery around there is pretty. The reason I do 8x here is because otherwise it would be, an hour-long video of just of the car driving itself. Now, I personally find it fascinating that a car is driving itself, but it's amazing that we're actually getting used to this idea. Just think of how advanced this technology is, where watching a video of a car driving itself has become more or less the norm. Now, unfortunately, when I made these videos, I wasn't really thinking, and I had a book on tape playing in the background, which causes major copyright strikes. So I had to mute the video, mute any audio. I've corrected that in future videos, but that's why the audio from the actual video is muted. That, and it's of course 8x faster, which makes everything sound like a mouse. But in future videos, what I've done is I use an earpiece now to listen to my book on tape, because I really enjoyed, while driving, I enjoy listening to Audible. So I'm retired. I just take my car out on FSD and I go visit superchargers around my area. I document the trip. There's actually two videos. This is the full video, and then there's a shortened video which actually just concentrates on the superchargers and talks about the amenities around the supercharger. I'll put a link to that video. And that video is more for people who want to use the superchargers. This video is more for people who just want to see what FSD can do, full self-driving. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt about full self-driving out there. It's not perfect, but it does work. It's what it can do is very exciting. There's another video that I'm going to try to put a tag on. I had a problem tagging multiple videos before, but I'll give it a shot. There's another video. I drive from Chicago to Detroit about once a month, and I use full self-driving the whole way. 319 miles of full self-driving. Never touch the steering wheel. So there's a couple of videos of that. I've recorded a couple of trips. Again, I say never touch the steering wheel. Usually when you get into the parking lot, FSD becomes pretty much useless once you get into the parking lot. So it'll pull into the parking lot, and then at that point it really doesn't know what to do. That part, the self-parking, has not been turned on yet. So for example, if you use FSD to take you to a supercharger, it'll take you right in front of the supercharger, and then it'll just stop. You have to actually disengage. It's really odd. You have to disengage full self-driving and then engage self-parking. You actually have to do that process manually, and then it'll back itself into the supercharger spot. That connection hasn't been made yet on the version of full self-driving I have here, which I should mention is FSD 12.5.4. I think on this trip it was 12.5.4.1. I just got 12.5.4.2 a week or so ago. So yes, this is Tesla FSD 541 running on a Model Y on hardware 3. So welcome to the Grand Geneva Resort. This is actually my first time ever being there. We live in this, we live, 30 miles away from here, and we've never actually been here. It's a gorgeous resort. As I said before, I had to disengage full self-driving slightly before getting to the superchargers because I had just put in the resort, and it wasn't taking me anywhere near the superchargers. So here I am charging up, and then I turn around and I go back home, and I do this. I've been trying to do this once a week. I did a bunch of them. I did a bunch of these videos. When I go to Detroit, I always try to make a video for each charger I visit. Same when I come from Chicago back, or from Detroit back to Chicago. I try to pick different superchargers and take videos of each one. What I do is I take pictures of around the supercharger, and then I video about 5 or 10 minutes driving into the supercharger and about 5 or 10 minutes leaving the supercharger. This way, people can watch that video and get an idea of what's around the superchargers. What's the neighborhood like? What are the amenities around the supercharger? Anyway, this is by far the prettiest supercharger I've ever been to. Uh, I don't know if you saw it, but there's right next to the supercharger, there's a playground, which is really cool. It's actually in the spa parking lot. So to the left of me, right here, is the spa, and just an absolutely gorgeous drive. It's off the main road, so there's this long winding, road you have to go down. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I actually got out of the car while charging and I walked around. Just a great place to charge and hike, and I guess you could use the spa. There's obviously a hotel there. There's a whole resort, and it's just a really a nice place to visit. So as you can tell from the video, full self-driving works on side streets. It works on highways. It works everywhere. There's even some videos of people online. There's some YouTube videos of people using it off-road. Um, it My wife's car is hardware 4, and she's running 12.5.6. I think it's 12.5.6. It will actually pull into our driveway and pull into our garage. Now I mean, that was amazing when her car did that. I wasn't even expecting it because normally my car, which is the one here, the red one with hardware 3, it will just pull up in front of my house and full self driving says, you're home, and it stops the car and it waits for you to take over. But my wife's car, with hardware 3 in the latest FSD, will turn into our driveway and pull right into our garage. It is amazing. Full self-driving, at least at this stage, is supervised. So the official name is full self-driving parentheses supervised. And what that means is that you are the captain. Okay, and a lot of people don't really understand what autopilot means. Um, it's the same concept here, though. With full self-driving, what they mean by full self-driving is the computer is controlling the steering wheel, it's controlling the brakes, and it's controlling the accelerator. It's fully controlling the car. I am a passenger, but I'm a supervisor, a captain. My job is to watch the system, keep my, looking out the window, paying attention to what's going on. What I do is I spend most of my scan looking out the window, and then I glance every once in a while at the screen, because what the screen does, that blue line on the screen, tells you what the full self-driving computer is thinking. It tells you not only what it sees, what it perceives around the car, but the blue line tells you what it plans to do. It's sort of it's a pushed out to the future. So when you're supervising anything, you're constantly predicting what you think it's going to do. So when I'm sitting in the car, I'm constantly looking outside and I'm predicting what the car is going to do. And as soon as it does something that I did not predict, as soon as it acts differently, then that gets my attention and I grab the controls. Or usually with me, the first thing I do is hit the brakes. Now, that's the other thing is you want to. I keep my feet on the floor. I use I use full self-driving a lot, like how I used to use lane keep assist and cruise control, advanced cruise control. You want to keep your foot on the floor, constantly thinking that you're going to hit the brake. So you want to be very aware. What you don't want to do, and I've heard people do by accident, is they hit the accelerator by accident. So if something happens, they accidentally hit the accelerator, which is not what you want to do. So you got to be conscientious of. You want to be prepared, right? You want to have your foot. You want to be imagining that if something happens, you're going to hit the brake. You want to have your foot away from the accelerator and by the brake. And if you see that full self-driving is getting into a situation that's going to be tough, what I'll usually do is I'll lift my foot up and I'll put it. I don't actually touch the brake. I'll put it just above the brake, so I am ready in an instant if it does something that I don't think it should do. And it's the same with the steering wheel. Now, one of the things about the steering wheel that you got to be careful about is, and this applies to the brake too, is it's very easy to disengage full self-driving. If you just touch the brake, it'll disengage, and you have to tug on the steering wheel a little bit. But I did it once by accident, and that's very jarring. You don't want to disengage full self-driving when you don't intentionally. You don't want to do it unintentionally. Um, what I would like to see Tesla do is if when you disengage full self-driving, I'd like to see maybe the screen turn red. It'd be nice if there was a more if it set off some sort of alarm or something when you disengaged. Um, but I understand why they haven't been able to do that yet. So that if you ever do disengage by accident, you know. But yeah, so when I'm driving, I can relax. Actually, maybe it's because I'm a private pilot. For me, just sitting there monitoring a system like that, I can fully relax while still paying attention to the road and listening to an audiobook. Obviously, you can't watch a movie, you can't do any of that kind of stuff. You can't do anything that takes your attention off the road, but you can actually relax. And what I like about full self driving is it lets you actually concentrate more on the road. So as I'm approaching cars coming in traffic, I'm actually watching their wheels. I'm looking to see if, as soon as that wheel turns a little bit, it lets me concentrate on things that I normally couldn't concentrate on. So, for example, if there's a car that's going to cross the road or come into traffic, I can now concentrate on their wheels, and as soon as that wheel moves an inch, I can be ready. I concentrate when I'm going passing someone in traffic. I'm concentrating on the point of contact of their wheel on the pavement, so I can see as soon as it crosses that line or as soon as that angle changes a little bit, I can react quickly. So it allows me to pay a lot more attention to the details on the road that let me react faster. And that's sort of how I take it. Again, private pilot, this is the kind of things you learn when you're landing an airplane because that happens very quickly. These little details. And then the scan is something you learn too. You learn about how to do a scan your instruments and looking outside. These are all things you learn. So these are things that I take to when I'm using full self-driving, and maybe that's why I like full self-driving so much because it does actually remind me of when I used to fly airplanes. This drive represents approximately 40 minutes each way, so 80 minutes total, and 30 miles each way, so about 60 miles total of never touching the steering wheel. On the highway, on side streets, at stoplights, at stop signs, the car took care of everything. Again, when I drive to Detroit, when I drive from Chicago back to Detroit, I'll go 130, 140 miles without ever touching the steering wheel. I'll drive for an hour easily without touching the steering wheel. This is the state that full self driving is in right now. It works incredibly well.